Network. On the Horn. onthehorn.com. This is the Hartford Online Radio Network. 21st Century Audio. Delivered. onthehorn.com.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Watchdog News Hour. We're live from Glastonbury. I'm your host, George Gambassi, and our guest tonight is Lisa Wilson-Foley, and Brian Parker is producing. One of the things I have to tell you before we start the show is that journalists are supposed to be unbiased people. And I have to tell you that there's no such a thing as an unbiased person or an unbiased journalist. The only ones are the ones that have had a lobotomy. I've had the pleasure of knowing Lisa and her husband Brian for over 20 years. And I have to tell you, when I put together a list of people that I wanted to have on the show, Lisa was among the first 10 people on my list. And it's just taken such a long time to get here. I've admired her and watched her progress and what she's given back to the community, and what her husband Brian has given back to the community. And I'm just thrilled to have you on the show.
Well, I am so thrilled to be here.
Great. Let me give you a little bit of background about Lisa. Lisa is, she tries to keep busy. I don't know how well she does. She has 7 children. What are their ages?
The youngest is 12 and one just turned 30.
Okay, 30. How many businesses do you run?
I'm folding them all into one company called LWF and going to keep it really simple, George.
How many businesses do you run?
I think we've got about 4 or 5 going right now.
Okay. That includes a great golf course out in Avon. You got an early on the bowling.
A great golf course. Come on now. You can't be just sitting there saying, it's a great golf. It is a great golf course in Avon.
You don't want me out there. I'm a gardener. I'm not a golfer. I dig up.
Yeah, he's Pepe. He keeps the divot filled.
Brian's a golfer. And you're into healthcare?
Mm-hmm, I
am. Now, in your spare time, you're getting a doctorate degree in physical therapy.
Yes.
My first ex-wife, I love to use that expression, I've only had one, is a physical therapist, and I know how tough it is just to become a physical therapist, so I can imagine what it's like to try to get a doctorate degree. And on top of that, you're now running for Congress. So my daughter, I was telling her today that you're on the program. She wants to know what you do in your spare time, what hobbies you have.
Yeah, let me just say, my golf game is not very good right now.
And what do you shoot?
I play a lot of scramble golf. I really have not played my own ball, in well over a year. So even last season, I don't think I played, maybe I played 9 holes. I say that I have a handicap of about a 21, 22, and that's probably 4 years ago. That's what I have. I don't even know at this point. I do love the game, and I love playing. I was just playing in a charity for hockey, sled hockey, the kids that have, disabilities, and they get on the ice with sleds, and they play ice hockey that way. And it was a great tournament yesterday. So sometimes I'll do the charity scrambles, and they're still fun. I have a good drive. That's about all my game is made up of these days, though.
All right. One of the reasons that I was really interested in having you on the show is because you've been involved with healthcare for a long time. And I think there's general agreement that one of the biggest issues that we face, especially in Connecticut, is healthcare. Mm-hmm. We now have, about 1 million, a third of our population belongs to the baby boomer age.
Yeah, that's right.
That's me. And there's no way that if things continue the way that they are, that we're going to be able to afford to provide medical care, nursing facilities. And I wanted to just pick your brain a little bit about what are the things that we're doing right, what are the things that we're doing wrong, and what kind of changes would you recommend?
Great question, George.
There's
Yes,
only about 4 questions in there.
Yeah, I've been involved in healthcare since I was 18 when I chose the field of physical therapy. And I went on and got my bachelor's degree in physical therapy, worked as a physical therapist, then got a master's in public health from Yale, really understood it from the policy perspective. And now I'm getting my doctorate. So I'm at the University of Montana, even though I'm doing it from long distance. Had to go there a little bit to meet my professors and all, but it's really book learning and learning off of CDs, which is a great way. It's very efficient. It's cost effective. I mean, you can get a doctorate now a lot less than you could.
I can
in
get
the
it
old
off
days.
a matchbook, you know.
Yeah, that's right. But you know what the real problems I believe in the healthcare system is that we're not cost conscious. And I'm going to give you an example of that. My daughter, who was 16 at the time, was on the trampoline in the backyard, and a slippery trampoline. It was a little bit rainy. She shouldn't have been out there, but she was with her girlfriends. And she came down really badly on her knee, and her total knee was dislocated. So she tore 3 of her ligaments, the major ligaments, left 1. And as a physical therapist, I heard she was out there. I ran out and realized it was outside of my framework, so I called an ambulance. And they took her to the emergency room, and she had x-rays, and they put a splint on her, and they told me to see her doctor the next day. An orthopedic surgeon did come in that day. But the next day I brought her to an orthopedic surgeon. He changed her brace and said, that one doesn't fit. Let me put another one on. I don't know what happened to the first one, but the second one went on. Don't know what the price of either of those were. I went to another doctor to get an opinion from a more a much more extreme surgical issue here. And so this orthopedic surgeon took that brace off and put this high-tech bendy thing on and said she really needed this kind of brace. I just didn't get a good vibe from this doctor, so I went to another one. And this doctor looked at that fancy brace and said, she doesn't need anything like that. She needs something that looks like this. And he pulled out something that was just given to her at the x-ray when she was at the ER. And I thought, I have no idea how much these braces cost. I went through 3 different doctors at this point with 3 different braces. And, we're left with this feeling of no control because these doctors know best. But I really didn't feel that that's the way that care needs to be delivered. We need to know how much things are costing. Maybe we need to pay a percentage of things that we're ordering to keep us asking the question of, well, how much is that brace? So we need a little bit more involvement from the consumer basis. And then I have therapists that say to me, Lisa, I treat for half an hour. So I give the patient my quality attention for half an hour, and then I have to go and document what I treated. And it takes about a half an hour. That doesn't include the billing process and the time and when we get audited and all that goes into it. So we're spending a lot of time not touching patients. And I don't think that's working very well for us. We've also got so many regulations, and they've come out for reasons. There was an issue here, an issue there. So we added all these piles of mandates and regulations. They're very costly. So you brought up the nursing home. It costs a lot of money when you're asked to not just provide the health care that a patient needs, but you have to take care of their spiritual side, their recreation side, all their social work needs, all their medication needs. You're cleaning their rooms. You're providing all their nutrition. You're checking their weight. It's not just something that you're seeing a nurse for a 20-minute period and that's all. It's really the regulations require facilities to take care of the whole person, which is great. It is good, but we've almost pushed out the family. So now families aren't even allowed to bring in food sometimes because, there's allergies. And, the families aren't expected to take care of a patient's room. It's the nursing staff and nursing assistants. So it's changed a lot since healthcare started.
Now, do you and Brian still own nursing homes? I've lost track.
My husband owns nursing homes. I provide only the therapy. So I provide
so you
the
charge
physical.
you charge him for the therapy.
Yeah,
session.
physical, occupational, and speech therapy. I did it before I met my husband. He was a customer. And then I ultimately married him, and now we're still involved.
Right.
But we keep our business life separate to a degree because it works out better when I'm the boss.
But I can imagine. So, but you still have a feel for the numbers there, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I have a good sense of numbers.
So what does it cost to keep one person in a nursing home per year? Do you have that kind of? Do you have
no, you know what? I don't. I'm sorry. I know that there's daily rates, and they can range anywhere from $250 to $600 $8 a day. And it varies based on, is the medication included? Is the medication not included? Is a Medicare patient with a, really intensive medical care, or is it, a patient, a frail elderly that just needs more of a 24-hour oversight? So that they vary based on acuity levels.
Okay. But 200 is about.
I think 220 to something like that is probably what it is nowadays. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's we're talking $50,000 a year minimum.
Yeah, I would say that's probably what it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if some of those people could get that care at home.
Yeah.
With, help from a nurse that comes in even 2 or 3 times a day, you'd be talking about saving a tremendous amount of money, wouldn't you?
You would, but if you think about, you would need these patients need 24-hour care. They're patients that aren't aware enough that they'll get out of bed and they'll fall, and that's the biggest fear for most people. If you don't have someone living in the home with them, most of them cannot survive with just a nurse or a nurse's aide coming in for 8 hours. When the snowstorm hit this past winter,
Sure.
I don't know if you remember that, but we had some frail elderly in their homes, and the nurses' aides weren't able to get to those homes. A personal experience, not a relation, but a good friend of mine went out to get her mail. She didn't have, the nurse's aide didn't show that day, and she was in her nightgown. She slipped on the ice and fell, and she wasn't found for hours later, ended up going to the hospital and never returned to her home, and passed recently. So, if you need that 24-hour care, it's very hard to put someone in the home without it. And so that's the caveat there. If we can, that's why Apple Rehab has gotten more into short-term rehab. You have a total knee, you need help for a week, you get it inside a facility, and then you go home. That works out really well, and a lot of the facilities are transitioning to that.
And what kind of patients do you have at Apple Care?
So Apple Rehab, you're going to get
Rehab.
patients with, they're usually still 65 and older, but we do get some young 60s. We get the total hips, the total knees. We'll get people with kind of maybe multiple diagnoses, so they might have heart condition as well as getting a total hip replacement. So they're at risk for other problems, so they can't go home. Maybe they have an elderly spouse that she can't take care of them, or he can't take care of the patient, and so they come to us for a short period. We've had patients that come in just for a weekend. So they come in on a Friday night and they leave on, Monday morning.
So your job is to keep them out of Brian's hands.
Yeah, my job is to, I want to send them home. That's the best day when I can send a patient home. And then sometimes we'll come back and get outpatient therapy with us.
We have Lisa Wilson-Foley as our guest today, and she's talking about medical care and health care in Connecticut. And I just want to talk a little bit more about it. If we can go back to the braces. Now, you're a physical therapist, and you've been in healthcare since you've been 18 years old.
Right.
Now, if you couldn't say, whoa, if you couldn't put a stop to the 4 different braces, then what's my odds, if that was my granddaughter or grandson that was in that situation, for me to say, well, wait a second, which brace is better?
Oh, it's ridiculous that we can as consumers. But it also shows that physicians treat differently, and depending on what school of thought they're from or their experience with those braces, I'm not going to say that they did it because it impacted their pocketbook. Although,
however, there's that famous however.
And that's, they also wanted their own x-rays. And again, my daughter was in pain, and I was like, look, you know what? This is now causing her pain. Every time you put her on the x-ray table, she's tearing up, she's crying, very painful injury. And I finally said, look, we can get that x-ray that the last doctor took, and we can get it emailed to you, and I think it's going to be just fine. But they don't like that. They don't like patients' families stepping in. The doctors want to be the ones that make the decisions.
So now you're running for Congress, and if you get elected, you're going to have to make some decisions involving health care and about the economy. And another reason I wanted you to be here, because you're involved in startup businesses and in all kinds of businesses. So what would be, say, 3 or 4 things that you would want to see change that's going to, I'm assuming you don't think we're on the right track now.
No, that's exactly why I'm running for Congress.
Okay.
When I went into physical therapy, I did it for a simple objective. I wanted to help people. And George, it really hasn't changed for me. One of the reasons I'm running for Congress is because I want to help people. And what I really see happening, and this is my greatest fear, is that we are losing the ability for our youth to have the American dream. And I think that is what makes our country so unique and so different from many other countries. But we are losing that because our government is becoming all-encompassing. And it's putting so many regulations and mandates and making it so difficult for small business people to succeed. I overcome a lot of obstacles. I have since I was little. I mean, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, that's for sure. But the average person that doesn't have that perseverance may not be able to overcome many of the obstacles that they put into play. I give you an example of one of the things is, the IRS. It is so difficult for a small business person to fill out those, the income tax returns. I have to hire a cadre.
I still haven't done mine yet.
Yeah, I mean, we put it off as much as we can,
right.
But it's so cumbersome and difficult. We have to have experts that show us the way. And in my small businesses, I have a few of them, but I get audited on a regular basis. They come in. It takes the auditor many months to figure out what I'm even doing because I have a lot of different businesses and they're all small. And then I know that's a cost to the taxpayers. I also have to have my CPA firm come in so that they can talk the same talk. I'm a smart woman, but when you start telling me all these different schedules and all the different new regulations and the old regulations and how they all dwindle into my IRS forms, I have trouble with that. So I know that the mom and pop shop that's, the pizza parlor, the small business owner that's working, a lot of hours every day is going to have a real hard time filling those forms out. So we need to make it simpler. We need to make it simpler for the average person, the small business person. And then if you come in and audit, it'll be a lot simpler for the auditor as well.
So how about specifics?
Specifics. I would like to see healthcare, that lovely unhealthy healthcare reform. I'd like to see it defunded or repealed. We need to replace it with something that empowers people and makes them be conscious of their own health. We cannot take that personal responsibility away. We also have to affect the system so we're reducing costs. I don't think the healthcare reform bill is going to reduce costs. I'm positive it's not. It's going to affect small businesses because it's going to make it even more expensive to be in business. So I would like to see it changed, and we do need reform, but we need to see some tort reform. We need liability rates to go down. Those are the kind of reforms that I would like to see. The other thing, and this is
that gonna make a dramatic change? I mean, right now you have 40 million people without insurance, and those people either end up going bankrupt if they get ill, or they pay for the difference that people like I have insurance. If I have blood work done, the bill should be $190. But because my insurance company negotiates a rate, it's $90, and then I pay, say, a $10 copay. Someone who doesn't have insurance, they'll get charged $190. So is that going to help the people in the middle who aren't poor enough to receive Medicare or Medicaid and aren't rich enough or have a job that pays them health insurance?
Yeah. And I'm not saying that we don't need health care reform. We do, and we need to get that middle ground going. But we need to look at it differently than we have, because we're not going to reduce costs with this new health care reform. We need to make it better. There are more efficient ways to provide health care. We see our doctor way more than we need to. And if we use more technology, especially with the elderly, we can use more technology. There's been studies that have shown that people go to see their doctor because it's more of a social issue. They get attention when they go. Their family comes to visit them to take them to the doctors. I think that we need to use more nurse practitioners, APRNs, kind of people that maybe are less expensive to go see, and put groups together that have similar illnesses and diagnoses, and do more of that group energy and education to reduce the expenses. But I'm not saying we shouldn't have more people covered. I think that's where our country should be going. It's just a matter of taking away that personal responsibility. We need to incentivize people to stay healthier and to become more educated and more aware of their own healthcare needs. I'd like to move though, because education is one of my it's my pet peeve, but it's also my passion. Having 7 children and seeing them, and it's a blended family of 7, so I want to admit that 4 of them are my biological children. But I've seen 7 kids go through school systems, all different learners. We have a kinetic learner. We have a learner that needs to say it to herself versus hearing it from someone else. We have learners that are very fast. They've got to have the need for speed. I jokingly say some of them read like they ski. One want to be methodical skiers, and they're also very methodical learners, and others have a need for speed, and that they've got to learn at that level. And in our family, we've been able to, juggle based on the kids' needs. So our kids have been in public school, they've been in private school, we've done the Montessori piece, I've even homeschooled at different times in their lives. And I believe that we have plenty of money in our system. We're just not using it as wisely as we should. We need to have more practical education. We need to get these kids so that they're going to have jobs when they get out, whether that's more learning, practical learning and doing internships, even in high school. I'm learning, getting my doctorate with earphones just like we are today, my CD, my books by the best authors. They write the CDs. It's wonderful. It's a great way to learn without brick and mortar. So I think we need to change up our educational system. I'd love to see more voucher availability for students so that they can choose where they want to go to school.
Let me ask you this. What would you consider are the 2 biggest challenges facing America?
Our debt is the number one, and our jobs is right up there.
All right. Well, let's take them one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say debt number 1, jobs number 2.
Well, I don't know that I would put 1 and 2.
Well, okay.
They're both.
They're both.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
So let me add a third one. See if you'll agree with that. Housing.
I would not put it up there with the top. And I say that because we've done a lot of surveys. What are the people's, number 1, number 2, number 3 cares? And it's the economy, it's jobs, and it's and the debt. They're very concerned about that.
Let me just.
We can talk about housing, though. Energy.
Housing in terms of if you can't sell your house.
Oh, okay. The economy and housing.
The economy and
okay.
housing.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you can't sell your house, you can't move for a job.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, housing and jobs are very closely linked because in the past, when we got out of a recession, you could sell your house and move because there are jobs available. Out of Montana, the unemployment rate is 2%. Same thing in South Dakota, North Dakota, and all those states. Mm-hmm. They have plenty of jobs. And in other states, there are plenty of jobs. People can't move. Houses that people purchased from 2002 to 2006 are worth less than 50% of what people paid for.
Yeah. And
you know that most people paid down zip or maybe 10% if the bank was strict. So, but anyway, all right. So debt. We're Greece's, but we're getting close in some ways.
Yeah. I mean,
we've got 30 minutes. Let's take debt. What are the concrete steps that we need to take to reduce our debt? First of all, do you know what our debt is?
It's over $14 trillion at this point.
When you include what?
Well, there's the debt that we owe to ourselves, and I think that's maybe $4 trillion, and then debt we owe to other people.
Well, just the student loans is $1 trillion, right there.
Okay.
Then you have the public pension. That's $3 trillion. So then you've got Medicare, then you've got Social Security, and then you've got just the overall.
And yes, certainly you can count about the pensions that we haven't paid and all the things that we haven't. So it's probably more than 14.5 trillion, whatever it is, 14.5. And depending on what you're adding in there, it can vary. But that's the typical number that they're calling when we keep saying we're hitting our debt ceiling. So, one of the
right, but I just want to make the point that number that they're using doesn't include all the government debt.
Oh,
it doesn't include Social Security, Medicare. Those two are huge.
Yes, right. The projected forward numbers,
Right.
to what we don't do here in Connecticut. We don't add those in as
Right.
well. The GAO which is a bipartisan organization, came out with a study just in March. And they came out with $200 billion of things that they could just take right off the table now, ongoing expenses. And those are really legitimate ways to reduce the budget. And we reduce the budget, we will ultimately reduce the debt. Obviously, jobs are part of it. If we can get more people working, they are paying more taxes, it's going to make our budget balanced further. So that's why they are so tied in. We need to get more people working. I mean, unemployment rate is still very high, and that's got to be a piece of it. But we have to say no more. Government cannot be everything to everybody. We have to realize that it makes up 42% of the GDP, maybe in 2008, the last time, or maybe it's 2009 that I looked at the numbers. That comes a long way if you go back to 1960, when it made up much, much less. So we are, I think, for average for the country, for the world, it's 47%. We're at 42%. But we're not a socialist country. I mean, one of the things that, we live here because we like the fact that we do have the American dream. We have the ability to, have a free enterprise. And I believe that government has become the be-all, end-all for people. And I would love to see our federal government shrink and our states take on more and have more flexibility to make changes at a very local level. I give you an example. In my business, I want the greenskeeper to know all about grass. So I don't really know how to grow grass. I don't want to know how to grow grass. I want him to know how. So if I need to ask the question about something, I ask him. And I want the guy that's actually mowing the greens to know and be able to make changes at that level. So it's simple in my business. Same concept really should hold true with the stuff that we're doing in the government. If towns can make decisions, the best decisions for their townspeople, I'd like to see them be able to make those decisions. And then the state. And lastly, the federal government, and it goes back to our Constitution. We were really not meant to be this huge, 42% of our GDP. That doesn't fit with what we were all about when we started this country.
So, where are you going to cut $13 billion? Or we're going to find $13 trillion, not billion,
Yeah.
$13 trillion. Should we cut defense? Should we cut some Pratt & Whitney jobs and some Hamilton Sunstrand jobs?
There's inefficiencies in the Pentagon. It's been proven, it's been shown. There's certainly ways to reduce. Data and technology have really been embraced, and other companies, businesses have had to make changes based on technology. It did take out jobs. I'm not a believer that we keep watchmakers when people aren't buying watches anymore. We need to transfer them to cell phone makers. And so,
of course, we don't have watchmakers in Connecticut, but we do make fighter jet engines in Connecticut.
We do, and sure, am I biased? Of course I am. I want to keep the jobs here. I want to protect the jobs that we have. Right. But if you're looking...
Doesn't every congressman want to do that? Isn't that why you can't have a $200 billion savings? Because what's a pork barrel to you and I out in Montana is jobs for people in Montana. Mm-hmm. So how do you end this vicious cycle where the Connecticut delegation would get tarred and feathered if they voted to cut a single piece of military funding that impacted UTC or General Electric or even General Dynamics?
Yeah. And I'll understand where you're coming from, but understand where I'm thinking, that there's huge inefficiencies in the operations. We're not purchasing well, and studies have shown, GAO has opened that wide up and shown that we're...
And Gates agrees with you.
Yeah, that's right. We're poor purchasers. So there are things we need to fix now without cutting into the job market at this point. I mean, those things can be done without really affecting how many people are employed in Connecticut. The other thing is, we subsidize a lot of things that aren't working. I look at outcomes. I'm a business person, and also even in my family, did I do a good job as a mom? Well, I'm watching my kids graduate from college, get jobs when they can, and become productive citizens. I'm looking at that as an outcome, and that's when I'll say, I did okay.
Lisa, I think we're being, there's a hint that we're going to take a break here. We'll be right back, folks. We got to take care of those sponsors.
All right, Lisa Wilson-Foley here with George Gambassi, and we want to tell you about our friends over in Avon as well. Deepwater Seafood the Farmington Valley's freshest seafood store. They will work with you and your schedule. Call ahead, 860-676-9657, or you can order by fax, very convenient, 860-677-2281. They will set aside your order for pickup after work Tuesday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Fully prepared and almost prepared dinners, all from Deepwater Seafood. George Gambassi and the CT Watchdog News Hour coming up right now.
Budwitz and Meyerjack PC is a large Connecticut-based CPA firm with offices in Cheshire and Farmington, Connecticut. Large enough to handle engagements of enterprises with annual revenues in excess of $100 million, yet small enough to cater to smaller businesses and individual clients who expect personalized attention from partners and staff. Client service is the cornerstone of our practice. Our clients have a fixed fee for their audit and tax work. What this means to the client is we're approachable. Personal communication and client services make for strong relationships. Budwitz and Meyerjack, certified public accountants.
Sandits Travel for business and leisure. We'll take you there. Sandits Travel has been proudly serving Connecticut since 1960. That's over 50 years. And we're ready for another 50 years of superior service. Whether you prefer to come in, call in, or log on, we invite you to explore how efficient, diverse, and fun it is to book through Sandits Travel. Save your money and your time with us. Sandits Travel. We'll take you there.
At home, work, or your favorite coffee shop, if there's a Wi-Fi connection, get on the horn. Hartford's heart and soul. onthehorn.com.
One day I'll get George to read one of these commercials instead of me. He's a fraidy cat. All right, take it away, big guy.
Thank you. We're back with Lisa Wilson-Foley. So right now we're maybe at $500 billion. Where are we going from there?
Mm-hmm. Just talk a little bit more about the subsidies. Ethanol. We subsidize ethanol, and it has not been proven to be very.
You must have watched the show from 2 weeks ago.
Oh no, I didn't.
Oh,
did you talk about it?
Yeah, it's a waste.
Yes, it's a waste, and bipartisan support that it's a waste. So let's cut it. Let's change it up. We take a long time to make those changes. And maybe, I'm that business type person and I'm used to running my own show that, I look at things and if it's not working, I make changes, and that's worked for my companies. Now, government isn't a business, and people will say to me, well, Lisa, you can't cut everything because people are depending on you. And I agree with that. But government has gotten their hands into many things that could be run more business-like. And those are the things that I really want to get involved in. And especially when I talk about the regulations and the mandates, we have a lot of lawyers working in Washington, and they put out reams of paper. Difficult to read. In fact, they say that, hey, let's not read the bill, let's put it into action, and then we'll get a chance to figure out what's in it. That doesn't quite work for me. I want to know what's in those bills, and I want to make sure that we can put people in Congress that have worked in the system. These should not be political, graduates, and they go there for life. I don't need a job. I don't need a pension. I'm going to Washington because Washington's not working for us. And so I'm choosing to go at my age of 51. I've raised my kids. My kids are just about to be launched, and my businesses are in a good way. But our government is not. And that's what I want to do. I want to really go there and take realistic expectations, the expectations of our people, our citizens, who are not happy with the way things have turned.
Let's talk about jobs. There's a fascinating article in Time magazine by Fareed Zakaria, I think his name is. He's originally from India. Brilliant guy. He's on CNN also. And he talked about how in the last 10 years, there were 1.5 million net jobs created in the United States. And that every single projection from the president to Republicans is counting on 10 million net new jobs being created in the next 10 years, which he doesn't see happening, and frankly, I don't see it happening. And the other scary figure that he had in there was that our gross domestic product, our GDP, is now the same as it was 3 years ago prior to the financial meltdown. It's about $13 trillion a year. but with 10 million less workers. That means that industry and commerce was able to create the same amount of goods and services with 10 million less workers by efficiencies and by technology and by shipping out jobs to overseas. Now you have, and it's not just blue collar workers. I mean, some of that stuff's coming back because Americans are making better products. But there could be lawyers. A lot of the legal research is being done now in India, in the Philippines, in Ireland, where people speak same English as we speak here. Mm-hmm. And they'll do it for $10 an hour as opposed to $200 an hour. So what do we do about I don't see anything that's going to drastically reduce our unemployment, and I don't think the president's to blame for it. I think we have some real structural problems.
Well, first I want to hit the point about our efficiency. You're right. We are still pumping out quite a bit with less people. And I was recently with a guy named Don Droppo out of Newtown. He has a company called Curtis Packaging. And his father bought it back in 1986, and he took it over. He's a young guy, and he turned it, the energy is all wind-developed energy. So it's green technology. He's grown his business. But when I went through his manufacturing plant, technology was the key. So he has a lot less people than it would have taken even 10, 15 years ago, because these huge pieces of equipment are able to grind it up and push it through and, do all these tasks that used to be, done by hand.
And those were high-paying, skilled, precision jobs.
You've got it. So
right.
These, machines are now taking over what man used to have to do. So we're more efficient because we are using that technology,
right.
but of course, less jobs. However, he's made a niche for himself because he is green energy, and he does the packaging for even golf balls. Like, he does all the packaging for Titleist and for these Elizabeth Arden perfumes.
Wow.
Very cool company out in Newtown. And it's very precision-oriented, and the customer likes the fact that he's got this niche of green energy. So they're willing to pay a little bit more. They're willing to keep it here in this country, knowing that that's important to their customer ultimately.
He's a Avon High School Falcon. Did you know that?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
And I like that you called him young, because he's in my grade.
Oh, really? Yeah, his kids are now in Avon schools.
Isn't that
cool? He still lives in Avon, yeah.
And he was actually one of the, I think it was Harvard Business Journal, 40 under 40.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's 37, I think.
37. Mm-hmm. He's a year older than me. He's still very young.
Yeah.
Donnie Droppo. What a great guy.
Oh.
The world is small.
Very
small world. You said Droppo. I was like, huh? I think I know him.
Yeah. Well, I've been going around talking to, especially manufacturers, small manufacturers. I love them.
They're sharp people.
They are. And, they say to me, Lisa, I just want government off my back. I'm here in Connecticut because I love Connecticut. My grandfather started the company. I want to keep the company here. The schools are really good. But we need government to get off of our case and make it easier for us to do what we do best.
Is it the state government that they're concerned about, or is it the federal, or is it both?
Oh, it's both. It's a combo, especially for manufacturing plants. I mean, they have a lot of regulations that they have to comply with from both governments. And even, you've got the local government in there too. So those are some of the things that I'm hearing from the manufacturers that the government can do a better job of by leaving them alone. I talk about them as rainmakers. They know how to create jobs. I'm one of them to a degree. I think about jobs every day. And I always say to people, last session, Washington only talked about job creation 3 days out of the whole session. And I will go to Washington. I will think about it in the morning. I'll think about it in the afternoon, and I'll think about it before I go to bed, because that's how I've always thought. I started my first company when I was age 29. And I have not looked back. And through all my kids, I'd have a baby, and while I was on maternity leave, I'd be thinking about a new business. I'd delegate everything that I had to do, come back and go, whoa, they're doing a really good job. And I'd be able to start something new. That's why people say, how did you do it? Well, I don't know how to ring a cash register, and I'm not mowing the lawns, but I do think creatively. And I know how to...
And you're comfortable delegating?
Love to delegate. I mean, my first company, the first company was just me. And I realized, whoa, you have to work really hard.
Yep.
I mean, it's a lot of long nights.
It's called a one-armed paper hanger.
And I said, I've got to get big quickly because my skill set is not good like this wide. I really have some great skills. I'm creative. I can overcome obstacles. I love great ideas from whoever I can pick them from, and then I usually can turn them into reality, which is what many people have a hard time with. So what government has to do is incentivize people that are rainmakers. Some of them are at university. We have some of the best universities and colleges in the world. So we've got these incubators.
So how do you do it? How do you create these jobs?
We have to incentivize tying the workforce with the universities. I was talking to some people from UTC, and we have a great 2-year program, the technical colleges, and the companies like UTC have not tied into those schools at a very good way, in a very good way. Everybody knows it. They even recognize that they should tie in, but somehow that's not been something that has been fostered or incentivized. So I think we've got to think about that. We also have to think about, we have got people living a lot longer than they used to live. And so I always say, don't even think about retiring at age 65.
Right.
Because we're going to live to 85. So what are you going to do for 20 years? Start thinking about what kind of jobs or what kind of needs, if you're looking at it from the other perspective, will people that are healthy from 65 to 85 be looking for? I tell my kids, you're the perfect age to start your businesses now. I started at 29. I think it was too old. I probably should have started when I was 25. And we have our kids. I mean, my 16-year-old has a vending business. And I tell her, here's the vending machine, here's the keys. You have to figure out what kind of, products you're going to put in here. You've got to quantify it. You got to figure out, do you buy it at BJ's or CVS or do you order it through this catalog? And she cares so much more about her money than when I was just handing out the Starbucks money and those kind of things. So we encourage entrepreneurship in our family.
So where does she keep the vending machines?
Well, I have a bowling alley, and so
she has
a couple of machines there. My son, who's now in college, he started it. He did the soda machines and the candy machines in several locations. She's not quite as strong. There's a lot of lifting, especially with the soda. So she just took over the candy machines, but she does it all herself. She has her own little bank account, and she brings some coins to the bank. I don't know where she got all the quarters and dollars, but what I learned through the kids is that, when you give a kid a job and a responsibility and it's their money, wow, it's a whole different kid versus when they come and say, Mom, can I have $1 for soda? And then, hey, they come back a little while later, can I have $1 for something else or $10 to go to the movies? I learned early. Give the kid a job, and then before you know it, they're buying me the Starbucks because they want to stop at Starbucks and say, okay, I'll drive you, but, you got any money? Because Mom needs a little coffee myself. And it's created a different kind of kid. And I think we need to do a little bit more of that. Even workers' unemployment, let's say you lost your job. We need to create incentives for people to get jobs. We need to make sure that either they're spending some time looking for jobs or maybe they're volunteering time. And I'm willing to put money, our taxpayer dollars, towards people that are going to help other people in a volunteer capacity or are really out there humping. But when I go out west with my kids and we're taking a vacation out there and I bump into kids that are on unemployment and they're using it to kind of tour around a little bit, that just doesn't feel so good. So I think we have to do a better job about incentivizing people to, buck it up and work hard and be participating in our systems.
Which company did you enjoy starting the most?
Probably my first. It just had that feeling of, wow, I can really do this. People said to me, did you always want to own a business? And I'm like, I didn't even know anyone that owned a business. No, I didn't even think about owning a business. But when I got out of grad school, I worked for a company, Athena Healthcare Systems, and there were 5 owners. And I used to watch them. I'd stay late, working late, and they'd have their meetings, their ownership meetings, and they'd drink a little wine, and they would argue. I'd watch them through the glass panels. And I thought, I'd like to one day do that. And so a couple of years later, I did. But they were probably the first people that I saw interact with a partnership. I started my first one myself, but I did it with a friend who was going to UConn's business school, and he needed to do a business plan. So I gave him my idea, and I said, look, why don't you write this plan on my idea? He got an A, and I took the plan and started my first company. It was a healthcare marketing company, kind of new and novel at the time, obviously not so much, 30 years later or 20 years later, but.
And then how'd you get into the golf course?
I was driving by many days, and I was a part of the American Heart Association. A woman that was involved in it with me, she said, "Hey, did you hear the golf course across the street?" She owned a restaurant. "Is for sale." And my eyes just opened up wide, and I was like, whoa, that is something that I never would have dreamed about owning. But I drove by that golf course so many times, and I had played it quite a few as well. And I had just sold a healthcare business, so I had some money in my pocket. And I thought, that's a business that I could bring my kids to. We could do it as a family, because I was getting to the point where I think I was 3 kids, pregnant with my 4th, knew that the game that I was doing with the healthcare, it was getting bigger and bigger. I was traveling more. It had grown to be New England sized. I had quite a few employees. And so I sold my healthcare businesses, and I bought the golf course, and I never looked back. I mean, it's been a wonderful, wonderful thing.
And you made it into a woman-friendly. It's
woman-friendly. It was 18 holes. I added another 9, so I got to do a little of my creative part by being involved. We had an architect, but, I had a little say. Cut that tree down. It's in my way. And put the ladies' tee a little closer to the green. Those kind of things, important to have my stamp on there.
The Donald Ross. Look out, baby. Here she comes.
Wow. And what was the reaction? Did men stay away because women were out there, or there must have been some challenges. It's like learning how to play. Getting a lesson in golf after you've been playing for a while. Even if it's a good point, you're going to screw up because you made a change. There's a downside to every plus side.
Well, I had great ideas that didn't work. I learned a lot from my mistakes. I've had failed companies. I did a company called Boston Carpet and Tile, and my brother was the main manager, and I was, the financer, and I kind of oversaw the bigger picture. And we did 2 stores, and then we went under. And I learned very quickly that, not everybody makes a good manager. Right. They might be great brothers, but they might not be good business partners. He now oversees my golf course, and he's great without an ownership stake. Mm-hmm. He runs a really nice, show there. And our real core at Blue Fox Run is just have fun. And whether you're a woman or you're a guy, golf can be intimidating, and if you know that the whole motto is just have fun, you're going to get up there at that first tee, and instead of that intimidation factor, someone's going to be there to smile at you, take it easy, and have a good first swing. So we did learn a little lesson, though I thought daycare would be awesome, and we did put a daycare in there, and it worked for quite a few years. But I thought men would use it too. And men made up, I think in the beginning, maybe 85% of my business. Slowly and surely, I brought the women's market to more like 25, 75. But men still are the majority of the customers, and we want to make sure they have a great day out there too. And so I foster good relationships with both sexes. We just want to make sure that everybody can come out, and golf should be fun. If you're not having fun playing golf, you got to reevaluate, what you care about.
And what's the significance of Blue Fox?
I love animals, and I thought, I am a woman. Why not name it after a coat, right? The Blue Fox coat.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted little diamonds hanging off there, but the guy said no.
No. Yes, that's too much. Got it. Now, you also, weren't you guys involved in some jazz clubs or some restaurants?
My husband owns Newport Blues Cafe down in Newport, Rhode Island.
I've been by there before.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That used to be in Avon too, right? Right across from the
golf
course.
Yeah.
Yes, but people in Avon don't like to stay out till 1. They only like to stay out till about 11. It's
when
hard
they
to have
roll
a
up
jazz
the few sidewalks.
We're a sleepy time.
Yes.
You give the babysitters. But when the Avon people go to Newport on vacation, they are a whole different breed. So it still works down there. And I have a couple of inns right down in downtown Newport, because I figured the people that stayed overnight or wanted to stay overnight could kind of roll up the street.
Really? Where in Newport?
Right on Pelham Street. You know Pelham's Bar? Yeah, it's right off of America's Cup.
Okay.
Yeah. So 3 little buildings there, and they're called the Newport Blues Inn. We have the Black Duck Inn, and the last one is the Blue Jewel. And they're all on the same street, and we interact with, you can sign up for one and end up at any one of the 3.
That's Newport's a hot place.
Yeah,
it's a great place. I like it.
I just have to make sure that I always have enough innkeepers, so if one can't make it in, that I never have to cook the breakfast, because I am not a good cook.
Oh, come on. Eggs. It's all you got to
do. Let's say you wanted a new challenge, business challenge. what kind of business would you start if you wanted something?
Business of government. That's the biggest challenge out there right now. One of the reasons that I am running for office, and the part that I've enjoyed so much is that it's big thinking. I mean, you have got to use your brain every day because the challenges are so great. How do we make our educational system stand out above the rest? How do we keep the jobs right here in Connecticut? How do we make sure that we have the best health care at the right cost? What kind of other, things can make you think that hard about in terms of the future of our country? So I've loved my business career. I really have, and I've done well with it. But I am ready to
You're ready for government.
to tackle some tough questions and tough decisions.
All right. Well, if you win, it'll be a much different lifestyle.
Yeah, that's true.
What does Brian say about all this?
My husband wakes up, pushes me out the door, and says, "Go take on the world, Lisa." And
really?
He's back there taking care of our kids are graduating. We have 3 graduations this spring, and he's semi-retired. So he is right there with the kids and helping out.
I cannot see him being semi-retired.
How old
is
He's
he?
59.
Semi-retired?
Well, he takes care of a
How old
lot
are you,
of
George?
things.
I'm 63. I'm going to be 64.
He'll never
In
quite
September.
retire. He'll never,
Yeah.
but he can work from home. He's been in the healthcare business for 35
Sure.
years. He can
Yeah.
do it with his arm behind his back. He says to me, Lisa,
Does he still drive his tractor around and stuff?
Oh, he's digging the ditches at the golf course. We're
Is
still
he?
digging the ditches. He still does some construction.
So he works for you then? Is what
yeah,
this
and for
comes
free.
to?
I don't have to pay the guy. No, he's been a wonderful asset, and I would never do something like this to my family or to my husband if he wasn't supportive. So he's right there behind me. Really knows that he's not that extroverted, if you remember. He certainly knows how to stand up in front of a crowd and get people to do what he needs them to do, but he doesn't love the circuit, and I can't imagine him running around and doing it. And so he's very happy for me to get out. He knows that it's my calling right now. It's my passion.
Well, that's great.
So.
I'd love to have him on
Oh,
sometime.
yes, we'll have to do that.
That would be great. Lisa, thank you very much. Really appreciate it, and good luck to you.
Oh, thank you very much, George. It's been awesome.
It's been great. Thank you.
All right, there it is. The Lisa Wilson-Foley interview right here with George Gambassi. Black Eyed Sally's Blues Festival is coming up right now. Let's see, Brian Lee is outside. He's 8 minutes away. Special message from the Connecticut Association of Realtors. The Connecticut General Assembly is considering another tax on home sales, this time on buyers. They have already passed a state budget with a 50% increase to real estate conveyance taxes on the sellers. Our elected officials keep talking about the importance of creating jobs and stability in the economy, but they seem to be doing just the opposite. A new tax could push home sales out of the price range of first-time home buyers. We all need to be part of the solution. Let's all share the burden together. Let's not put all the burden on the expense of home ownership. Paid for by the Connecticut Association of Realtors. Gene Furcodini is the president. Black Eyed and Blues up next, and Dave Moore is telling me that the pizza has arrived, so I'm going to go grab that. We'll be right back after this.
Online, on the horn. onthehorn.com. Sharper than a marble. Smoother than 60 grit sandpaper. On the horn. onthehorn.com.
Tracks on my radio, took the train uptown to downtown, and I just a little lost now. Disembarked that train around the second half, got my pants off to cool my head, cut down, had it, but turned up the dare wine. Just a little lost now. Oh, and I'm just a little lost, looking all the way across town, staring at the bricks and the walls of the building spinning around. Oh, I'm a New York City fan. Well, down Houston Street, turn the corner on Thompson, shuffle the beats, more bit back to rest my feet a while. Just a little lost now. Head back down to Bleak and hear the sound, but the music I heard was bringing me down. Oh, gone are the days of Dylan and Simon and Lou in the underground. Oh, and I'm just a little lost, looking all the way across town, staring at the bricks in the walls of the building spinning round. Oh, I'm New York City fan, and all my life I've been waiting on the train to make my name, to make my life more simpler and more sane. Sun and rain, love and pain. I'm New York City fan. Oh, I'm New York City fan. Oh, I'm New York City fan. Oh, I'm New York City fan.
We could have had actual DJs.
You'll get a kick out of this one.
Instead, we got these guys.
47% of people on the radio don't wear pants. It's a fact.
It's a work in progress. onthehorn.com. onthehorn.com.
Thank you.